we're getting a good mass of people again. For everyone joining us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning, maybe where you are, thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about customer education at scale. And we have Bobbie Brookins, marketing manager from PatientCo, to take us through some of her best practices, learnings, and things that work on her side. We have a really cool format today that is going to be kind of a new thing. So if you are hearing the sound of my voice, look in your webinar console, find the chat button, because we are going to be voting on what questions and topics we want Bobbie to speak to us about. And we're going to do a choose your own webinar type of format. So get familiar with the chat button. Go ahead and tell me what you had for breakfast, what you're having for lunch today. Let's make sure that chat function is working. Well, I haven't gotten any chats yet. Maybe people didn't have breakfast. Okay, we had some coffee. Thanks, Luis. Good stuff. Cool. I like subs too, Cecil. Thank you. Awesome. Hey, let's jump in without further ado. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Kevin Yanuszewski. I am a product marketing manager over here at Pendo, if you couldn't tell by all of my flair. And so pleased to have our awesome customer, Bobbie, here from PatientCo. Bobbie, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for the introduction. Again, I'm Bobbie Brookins, and I'm a marketing manager at PatientCo. And we're really excited. We've been using Pendo for about 3 years now, and it's been a super great tool for us.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, we're going to do a choose your own webinar format. These are the 6 topics and stories that Bobbie and I have kind of prepared for you today. These are her stories and her learnings. We want to understand, where do you want us to start? So go ahead and type into the chat, A, B, C, D, E, or F. We may not have time to cover all of the awesome information that Bobbie has to share with us today, but we want to make sure that we are covering the things that are most interesting to you. So go ahead and vote in the chat which story you want us to start with. And Bobbie, while we're waiting for those votes to come in, go ahead and give us a little background on yourself, how you came to PatientCo, and the sort of things you work on.
Yeah, so PatientCo is a healthcare technology company, and our goal is to help health systems create a superior patient financial experience. I think we can all recall a time where maybe we've received a healthcare bill that was unexpected or maybe a little too expensive. So to be able to be part of a company that is helping to solve for these issues and provide patients with affordable healthcare and payment options at the same time as helping health systems maintain a healthy revenue cycle so they can really focus on offering compassionate care has been a really great experience. I've been there for about 4 years now, so it's been really exciting to see it grow and change and be a part of the healthcare industry.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy that we have the opportunity to learn some of the things that are working for you, and hopefully there'll be some great takeaways for our audience as well. And seeing a lot of A's in the chats. Let's start with old feature, new tricks. And I don't know if it's just a clever name, but it is a great story. And I know this is about the feature that you guys recently put some work into, the patient wallet notifications. Tell us a little bit about that feature and what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, so we came out with patient wallet notifications probably about 2 years ago. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for patient wallet notifications. I always thought it was a super great product. We launched it. It just didn't take off quite quickly. It was a really great idea, pretty low adoption. We had some customers saying, I like it, but it needs to do X, Y, and Z instead. And so it kind of got into that cycle of low adoption, so we didn't have the resources to spend time on it, but because we didn't have the resources to enhance it, it was going to have low adoption. And then coronavirus hit. And so our goal was, how can we help health systems better communicate with their patients during this time? I think it's no surprise that a lot of health systems stopped doing elective procedures during this time, as well as people just didn't want to go in the office for their general appointments. So there was a lot of questions. How do I reschedule my appointment? What is this virus? How can I better protect myself? And then also on the financial side, it was very impactful to a lot of financial assistance. People were needing additional help. So there was an influx in questions coming to our health systems, and we wanted to be able to better prepare them to have those conversations at a mass scale with our customers or with their patients. So we took the time to make an enhancement to patient wallet notifications to allow them to link out to a resource. So they could link to any website they wanted to. Some great examples were rescheduling sites or financial aid assistant applications. And so, yeah, we were able to relaunch that using Pindo notifications. We didn't want to do this big relaunch because it already existed in their portal. So we were able to add a notification to the What's New help section saying we've made an update. And then once they went to the page, they had a light box saying, here's the changes we made, here's what we recommend. And then we linked to our knowledge base as well, so they could see it from the patient experience and also get a better understanding of how to use the product.
Now, I know this feature existed for a while, and I feel very deeply that, chicken egg kind of trap. No one's using it because it's missing something, but no one's using it, so why are we going to spend time here?
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of assess and understand what about your feature was missing through your users? How'd you get your pulse on that?
So we had, it had been launched for a while, so we had been gathering customer feedback on it. But I think it really was just a brainstorming session at the beginning of coronavirus. How can we help them right now? How can we better serve them? And communication just kept coming up, helping them better communicate at a mass scale. So it really became, a priority to help them in this specific need that caused the change.
And so communication was a theme. Did you consider other things to solve for communication, net new stuff versus like these tweaks on existing?
Yeah, so beyond communication, the need for contactless payment became very important. And I don't know if I'm giving away too much for a future topic, but we came up with a lot of new products. Our engineering team absolutely just went to work during coronavirus, trying to solve the needs for our customers and better serve them. Our goal truly is to be a partner to them and help them through this pandemic. I mean, this was completely unexpected. This was out of our roadmap. We were not anticipating making changes, to patient wallet notifications, in March, but that became the absolute need. And being able to work with health systems and say, how can we better support you during this has been really, it's been really great.
Yeah. So in terms of sizing, I mean, we're adding these links and additional context to the notifications. Is that like a big story point, something engineering could turn out quickly? What was the level of effort?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I'm sure our engineering team probably has a different perspective, but it seemed like it was a very quick turnaround. We identified an issue or a way to improve the feature. And then from there, we were able to say, okay, here's how we can solve for this. And then the adoption, I think, speaks for itself. A product that had very little to no adoption, it went to being used, by 20 different accounts. And so we were able to set a goal. We kind of set a lower one at first because I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to perform, but we were able to keep an eye on how it was performing, beyond just my expectation or maybe our product marketing manager's expectation for adoption. So being able to set a goal in Pendo and look at it and track it was kind of like a fun way to keep an eye on how things were progressing.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned goals. It's one of my favorite features in Pendo. I think it is something that is a little underused even by our customer base. So glad that you're seeing some use out of it.
Yeah.
I want to point out for any customers who are on the line, you can log into your Pendo account today. On any feature, just above the usage chart that's on the top of every feature page, just this little button here, add a goal, will let you say, I want to have this many users or this many accounts by a certain date. Or we also have an ongoing goal. So you can say, I want to make sure that each week I'm getting at least this many users or this many accounts. Bobbie, how do you share this with the team? How does this get published throughout your group?
Yeah, so anyone that has Pendo access can log in. We add it to dashboards so everyone can kind of have like a quick glance at it. And then I'm also planning on my product marketing manager, we are talking about how we can enhance adoption. And I think using goals going forward is going to be a really great tool for us. We can kind of set, consistent adoption goals and then be able to look at them through Pendo. So yeah, we share metrics very frequently. You know, keeping eye on metrics is very important at PatientCo. So yeah, sending this out has been important.
Awesome. Studio audience, we are of course taking your questions throughout this presentation. If there's anything you'd like to hear more about on Bobbie's story about teaching an old feature new tricks, or if there are other topics in this choose your own adventure that you want to dive into, we are looking at this chat as we are going. But you know, in our initial voting, we also got a lot of votes for people who wanted to learn a little bit more about boosting adoption of the knowledge base, and that's certainly a key component of customer education. I'm sure that's near and dear to your heart as well.
Mm-hmm. The knowledge base is actually how I got started in Pendo. Originally, when we signed on for Pendo, it was a tool for our product team. And then I was talking to my product manager. I was like, hey, can I have access? And then she was talking to me about all the different tools that we could use, specifically putting our knowledge base in a widget on anywhere on the site. And that has been so important for our self-service and our customer education. Originally, before we had it embedded on our site, before we had it in the widget, it was embedded on our site on the homepage. So if a customer had a question, they would have to stop their workflow and then go back to the homepage, look for what they're having a question about. And then from there, we were like, okay, how can we make this as easy as possible for them to find the knowledge that they're looking for? So being able to embed it in the widget, as well as like, you know, a what's new or just like in general knowledge, you know, having it in the help center has been really important. So yeah, it's seriously increased our visibility and our, you know, just overall usage of our knowledge base.
I mean, I think a lot of times when it comes to product documentation, we spend all this time, we put a lot of effort and make sure our documentation is good, it's complete, it answers all the questions, and then they call support, they call their CSM anyway. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to kind of teach your users or raise awareness that this resource is there for them to get those answers quickly? What's worked for you guys?
Yeah, so starting on day one, when they log in, they get a walkthrough that says, we are so excited you're here. Here's what PatientCo does. This is how we benefit you and your patients. And then the next parts of the walkthrough highlight some of our key functions of the homepage. And then the last part of the walkthrough is actually a plug for the knowledge base. It reminds them that the knowledge base is there. If they have questions, they can go there at any time. And so starting from day one, we reinforce that this exists for them. This is a tool they can use. And if they have a quick question, always go to the knowledge base. Of course, you know, we still have people calling in and sending emails to our support team, you know, for more complex issues, but quick things like, you know, how do I reset my password? What does this report do? We have seen a decrease in our support cases on just really quick answers. You know, they're able to now self-serve a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a screenshot of your product with the Help Center fired up. Again, this what's on the left of the screen is the PatientCo application. And then the Help Center is the Pendo widget that lives in on top of and within your application. What I really love about this is, one, you know, the search where people can, you know, find what they're looking for and not have to search within the knowledge base. They can search right within the product to find the answers. And then these suggested articles seem to really surface, you know, what people are likely to be looking for on that page.
And what I really like about it too is they can read like the whole article from this help center. So they can watch videos and they don't have to go to a new web page. They can read it right here. And that's been really great too, because it makes things way quicker than, okay, let me open a new web page, read through things. Putting it right where they can see it has been great.
Now we've got a question in the chat. Someone's asking, how do you develop your knowledge base over time? How does it evolve? How do you decide like what's in, what's out? What's your process like?
Yeah, so we've had a knowledge base for a very long time. So it has been around even before I started at PatientCo, and I've been here for 4 years. We break it up, or I guess technically I break it up based on the different functions of our site. So kind of like the basics of PatientCo. Then we go into reports. So kind of as you can see on the navigation bar on the top of that screenshot, how it's broken up, how they would access our site is how the knowledge base is divided. So they can kind of think, okay, this is what it looks like in the site. I need to go here for this information. When I'm making new articles, anytime we have a new product update or a new feature release, I go ahead and make a knowledge base article. So it's, and I think we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in depth, but I link out in guides or light boxes. I say, here's a knowledge base article that you can refer to. So always linking the two has been really great for, educating them and making sure they know that that knowledge base is there to serve them.
And we've got another question in the chat. What platform is your knowledge base on?
We use Zendesk.
You're using Zendesk? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so that search and the suggested articles, that's part of your Pendo and Zendesk integration?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think you were one of the first users of that. So thanks for helping us, get that locked in and tight.
Thank you, honestly. We have really enjoyed it. And there's so much you can do in the Help Center beyond just the knowledge base. So the what's new has been great too for product adoption and like letting them know, hey, we have a new feature. Here's what it looks like really quickly. Or, I was looking into adding our community actually here. Hopefully we can get that finalized very soon. But, giving them easy access in this Help Center, they're being now trained to go there first for things. So putting as many different functions as I can in the Help Center.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the Help Center, Guide Center, Resource Center, whatever people like to call it, just gives that extra layer of context. Mm-hmm. So super powerful. I'm glad you're leveraging that.
Yeah.
So studio audience, where should we go next? Let me hear it in the chat, and let's hear any other questions you have for Bobbie. Wealth and information, Pendo power user here. This is some time to get the skinny, get the deets. A lot of people want to hear about Pendo best practices, Bobbie. We may have to jump there. But
okay.
Seeing a lot of votes for roadmap and feature launches. Now, you did tease it earlier with developing new features, again, in the time of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. So let's quickly jump to launching new features.
Okay, yeah.
So contactless payments, kind of a cool idea. How did it come to be?
Yeah, so with coronavirus, on one side of the spectrum, you have patients that are going to health systems and they don't want to touch shared items. So the thought of now touching a credit card terminal that who knows how many other people have touched kind of is, a little iffy now. So, you have patient concerns. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we had a lot of our customers moving to remote work, and they still needed to be able to process payments in a very compliant way. So being able to give them the option to initiate a payment and then the patient then process the payment on their own smartphone. So this was a feature that we launched from coronavirus, and it has had really great adoption. I think this is another one that's an example. Education is key. So this was kind of more of a formal launch. We had the CSM team, doing education with the stakeholders. We did email campaigns. And then once we got that go ahead, we turned the feature on, and that's when Pindo came into play. We actually added a tooltip in their workflow. I think sometimes when there's a new feature or button, sometimes you can be a little hesitant to click on something new. So adding that tooltip saying, this is a great new feature, please start using it, here's how it works, was really great for adoption. And then, making sure there was no disconnect with them. And then we saw really great numbers and adoption from this. So tooltips are key for making sure, they know that this is something they should be using and why it's important.
Yeah. So how do you measure like a feature launch at this scale? Are you looking at like account activations, or what are some of the important North Stars you guys use?
Yeah, so every launch is a little bit different. A lot of our customers are different and they use PatientCo in different ways. So this launch in particular, we were looking at, number of accounts turning it on, but also, payments processed. So how many people are actually using this feature to process a payment? So I think it's a little different every single time, but those were the two key indicators.
I'm starting to learn that every time you ask a question in product management, every answer starts with, it depends. Right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then, you mentioned, people being hesitant to use something or uncertain. One of the things I really loved when you told me this story originally was how you documented the patient experience. Tell me a little bit more about like how that impacts usability and the ability to deliver this.
Mm-hmm. So in that tooltip, we still linked out to that knowledge base article. The tooltip, we don't want it to be super invasive. It's just kind of some key bullet points, but linking out saying, if you want to read more, click here. And in that knowledge base article, not only does it tell them their workflow, but it shows them the patient experience. So if they're on the phone with the patient, helping them through it, they can see what the patient sees and really be able to talk them through that process. And I think that just gives peace of mind to everyone in the situation. Walking everyone through the same process and like educating them. I think communication is just key. You can never over communicate. So giving them the tools to feel confident in what they're doing, I think is just the most important part.
Well, I just love that sense of empathy for someone who's, in a call center or like trying to deliver support over the phone. Like you can't see what the other sees, right? Their screen is different from your screen. So just like being thoughtful about giving that context helps your users deliver a better experience. I just really admire that.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other learnings from this launch, or how has your launch process changed and evolved over time?
I think our launch process continues to get better every single time. You learn from every single launch. It was a little different during coronavirus. We were working very quickly trying to serve needs. But every time we have a launch, we do have, a conversation. What went well? What could we improve for next time? And I know it's a top priority for our product team and our product marketing team, to really understand how we can improve launches going forward. And I think from my perspective, just always making sure that communication is there, customer communication is always a portion of our launch process. So what do we need to educate them? Is it a knowledge base article? Is it a tooltip? Is it a guide? We kind of go down this list and then say, okay, they need all these things. This is a really intensive product that's going to take a lot of training, or this is just a quick fix. So maybe they just need a light box. So always like thinking of like all the different edge cases of what could be going through their mind when they're experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing that customers who are doing guides at scale need to have some sort of guidance about like what UX patterns they're going to use for different situations. You guys are doing it back of the envelope, or do you have a more formal process? How do you decide how many messages are going to go into your app?
So that's a great question. We try to not overwhelm them. I use Pendo like the, is it toggling? Sorry, I should have remembered the terminology. So I use that to make sure they're not getting too many notifications in one day. I don't want them to be hit with, here's a new webinar, here's a new feature, here's a new this. So I try to make sure they, get limited. I think our team is really great about communication. I want to add a new guide. I want to get some feedback. And we all just kind of work together to make sure, we're not over hitting them. They're getting a new guide every few minutes, but, making sure that they are well educated and they do know, what's happening in our app. But yeah, it's a team effort to make sure we're not, blowing them up.
Do you know off the top of your head what your guide frequency is? People always want to know what other companies are doing.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. Right now, we don't have too many running. So it kind of depends. Yeah, keyword. But I think we do it. It depends on how many are active at the time, but usually one a day. Sometimes if it's just a lot going on, I'll do one a week. So I kind of just play around with it based on what's happening.
Yeah. For
content, a lot of, sorry, go ahead.
I was to say, we do ours one guide an hour. So if you're spending 3 hours,
okay.
You might see 3 guides if there's 3 guides that are available to you.
Okay. Maybe I'll up my frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a ton of guides in Pendo though, as most Pendo users know, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just different every single time, but I feel like a lot of our guides are actually segmented very differently. We have a lot of different types of users in PatientCo, a lot of different roles. So if one guide is relevant to one team, it may not be relevant to another. So actually, the segments may not, cross paths very much. They just get different education and different messaging.
And getting a question in the chat, I'm going to read it live. When it comes to launching a new feature or adjusting roadmap, how do you engage your UX and engineering teams? Do you have to kind of bring data to them and wave it in front of their face? Are they using Pendo on their own? What's kind of your collaboration process?
Yeah, so I cross collaborate with a ton of different teams at PatientCo, specifically from UX. We use our NPS data to identify our high usage promoters and detractors. And then we're actually launching some new features in the next few months. And I was working with our UX team pretty recently saying, okay, if you want to get user feedback, here's your core group, here are your super users. That's probably one of my favorite things about Pindo is from the NPS data, they go ahead and tell me who my high usage promoters and detractors are. I don't have to go searching for it. So being able to say, this is your core group. If you want to then put up a poll to say, are you interested in providing feedback? Then you can sign up using this link. So that's how I work with the UX team. As far as the product and engineering team, taking the feedback from NPS, we do a lot of polls on different functions. We have a community where they can provide feedback. And then from there, I'll create voice of the customer tickets, product request tickets. And then that goes into review from the product team. And then they try to incorporate their feedback into our product very frequently, especially every quarter. They're making sure that, the voice of the customer, the ones that are using it, they're making enhancements based off of their feedback.
So you mentioned NPS, and I know you have a great story about taking some of that NPS feedback from customers and turning that into product change. Can you talk us through how that came to be?
Absolutely. NPS is probably one of my favorite things about Pendo and has been super great for us. We take a lot of, emphasis from our NPS data. I think traditionally we have always, asked our buyers for NPS feedback. One of our core values is improve each and every day. So we always want to make sure we are partnering with these health systems. How can we improve your experience? And the buyers get that traditional NPS question. But once we saw that Pindo allowed us to do in-app NPS, we were like, okay, let's get some user feedback now. And we don't ask our users the traditional NPS question. They actually get asked, how much does using PatientCo make your job easier? And the point of that is to get specific areas of improvement. What do they like? What do they not like? What is frustrating? And so that has been super great for getting product enhancements and just like overall feedback. And then at the end of every NPS, I'll go ahead and do a plug for this part. I go ahead and thank them saying, I want them to know that it's not just a robot they're giving feedback to. Someone is actually listening to this, compiling it, and then making, tickets based off their feedback. So they get a thank you message saying, we received your feedback, we will work to incorporate it into your product. And I think that really helps, let them know that their feedback was important to us. And so the next time they'll be more inclined to respond again. So once we were running NPS, the first time we did it, I think it was about 2 years ago, we got a lot of feedback saying, you log me out way too much. And we're a healthcare technology company. We take compliance incredibly seriously. And logging people out is very standard in healthcare. So it wasn't that the customers weren't used to the concept. We were just missing a piece. We weren't telling them we were logging them out. So we were just logging them out, and that was creating a frustrating experience for them. So from NPS, we were able to identify that we just need to better communicate what we're doing. We made no changes to the security. They are still being logged out at the same frequency, but just adding that message completely changed their perception of the logout experience. We were able to communicate and educate them a lot more on why we were doing the things we were doing. And then when we ran NPS this last time, we only had one comment saying you logged me out. So it has been super impactful. And it was just one little change that we probably didn't realize, was causing so much frustration. And it really has paid off. And so it was exciting to be able to tell the product and engineering team, like, look at the work that you did. This change that you made really made a huge impact for our customers.
So it sounds like there was some element, this is maybe something that customers would bring up on an ad hoc basis. Maybe they mention to their CSM, maybe it doesn't come up in an account review, but how are you able to kind of get some quantitative data around that qualitative feedback? And how was that used to help prioritize this fix?
Yeah, so when we pull the data out of Pendo and you look at all of the comments, and then you can see it's across all of our customer base. It wasn't just one customer doesn't like being logged out. It was a consistent, comment. So it was one of those things like being able to show data is impactful for this percentage of our customers, or this percentage of our detractors specifically called this out. And I think that really helps for building cases and, just product enhancements in general.
Yeah, I love that. You gotta have some data behind this,
Mm-hmm.
These anecdotes. The plural of anecdote is data, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. My wife actually works at another Pendo customer, so we're having this conversation around the lunch table because we talk about Pendo all the time.
Yeah.
But just measuring NPS doesn't make your product any better. Doing something with the NPS responses is how you can move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you've got some great programs with things you do with your promoters, things you do with your detractors. Talk us through some of the ways you get more out of NPS by having these follow-on engagements.
Mm-hmm. I think segmentation is key. I can do so many things with building segments in Pindo. You can say if they answered this score on this guide and they're this type of user, give me the list of who it is. And so you can really say this type of role, experiences this is what they're doing on a daily basis. Here's how we can make enhancements. So really focusing on the type of user, I think has been really great for us. Because you look at a number and you're like, okay, this was a great number, but when you break it down, you can see like this type of user is more happy than this type of user. How can we get them all on the same level? Like what are they doing that they really love that this group is not doing? And so just being able to really divide and take a look, and a lot of it, does it depend on how long they've been a client? Does it depend on what type of client they are? So there's a lot of different ways we break down. So I think just segmentation is key.
Awesome. I love it. So I think that's a pretty good segue into some of the collaboration that you're doing across the teams. Because I know that we love all customers equally, but when it comes to segmenting by promoter detractor, which group do you find more useful when you're looking to do user research or enhancements?
Mm-hmm. I think promoters and detractors, they bring, I think including them both in the super user group is important, because your promoters are clearly happy, they want to sing your praises, so they're more inclined to provide positive feedback. But if you want to include those detractors as well, because they're spending just as much time in the site as your promoters, but they're not having the same experience. So you want to build you want to get feedback from people that like you, of course, but it's like you want to make sure that the people that maybe aren't having the same experience can provide feedback, so we can make sure the next time they're asked, they feel like they were included in building this product, and they just feel more attached to it, I guess you could say.
Attached to it.
Yeah. They're like, I was part of this.
Yeah, well, I think, and that's it's not a robot reading NPS, like there's a human behind it. I love that, just, closing the loop, making sure that people know they're heard, is a really important component.
Yeah. And so with the logout message as well, I added that to the what's new. It's just to help close the loop, saying, you gave us feedback. Here's why we do the thing we do. Here's the change we made. We appreciate it. And please continue to give us feedback. So always closing that loop and letting them know that the request they made had an impact and we heard it and we want to hear more. So always pushing them to that community as well when I can, because I want their feedback. They use it every single day. They know it best. So I want to hear what they have to say.
I love it. Let's pivot a little bit, because I want to continue with Julie's question about how you work with different teams. You talked a little bit about working with UX, but what about engineering? Tell me about a time that you were able to use Pendo data to really make a case to your engineering department.
Yeah. So I kind of have a funny story. Our engineering team was redesigning a report, and they were looking at deprecating a feature. And so we put up a poll. It was a poll that was triggered by an action. So they would only be asked, how do you use this if they clicked on the feature they were trying to get rid of. And I was like, oh, we're going to get great data from this. We ended up not getting good comments. People didn't really tell us that much about what they were doing. But the number of people that saw the report was compelling, or that saw the poll, was compelling enough. We were able to say, okay, we didn't get too much like comments about, what they were doing, but we were able to say, okay, this number of people saw it in a very short amount of time. It clearly is being used. So it actually ended up making it into the redesigned report. So being able just to give them data around like use cases and how many people are using it, I think is really important, and helps make sure that the product is, functioning as your customers need.
Yeah, I mean, redesigns are always tricky. Got to figure out what's in, what's out, and yeah, if that would have been missing, that might have caused some issues. It might have showed up in your detractor poll next time.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about some other groups? Marketing, customer success. What works interacting with those groups?
Yeah. So I am a part of the marketing team. So, obviously, I want to promote our content to our users as well. So sending out, if we have new white papers or blogs, webinar promotion, and I usually do that to a segmented group, the admins of our group, making sure they're aware of different webinars they can attend. I work very closely with our customer success team, working with the CSMs to say, do you have any engagement strategies? Is there a customer that you've had a conversation with that maybe you want to, send, get them to use a new feature? Do you want to do a light box with them? I already mentioned the customer support aspect, meeting with them, getting feedback. Are there any, you've noticed a pattern in questions that you've been getting from our customers? Do you want to build out a guide that maybe pushes them to a knowledge base so you don't have to answer the same questions next month? And then product is super important. I work very closely with them for the voice of the customer ticket. So taking the customer's feedback and then incorporating it into the product. So it's a cross departmental job here. We take Pindo very seriously. The data from Pindo is, very important for multiple departments in our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to double click on what you do with your success team. I didn't know about those kind of one-to-one kind of guides you put into, you target it for one account or one admin and an account. Is that my understanding right?
Yeah. So specifically, we haven't done this yet. I was planning on taking it from Pendo. I love whenever y'all have new CSMs and you say, here's your new CSM. So, as we're adding new team members, I was talking with the CSM yesterday. I was like, if we add a new team member, don't forget, I can add your photo to Pendo. So, like being able to have communication with them, if there's a customer that, they're trying to utilize a product feature and it's not taking off, the CSM team has those conversations on a monthly basis with our customers so they know firsthand like what areas they need to improve on. So yeah, I always give them the option if they want to build like specific guides for their customers. In Pendo, I have all of our CSMs and their clients segmented out. So I can automatically say, okay, send it to this CSM's clients, this kind of communication. So I work with them very closely to make sure, everyone's communicated with, everyone's engaged, and, they're talking to their customers like they would like to.
Amazing. I was kind of surprised by how many people wanted to hear about Pendo best practices, but I can't ignore the studio audience. Yeah, give the people what they want. Yeah. So, studio audience, please chime into the chat. Let us know if there are areas of the product that you're trying to understand better, certain functions that or specific questions that we can just bring up to the audience. But Bobbie, while we're waiting for our studio audience to chime in the chat, tell us about some of the favorite features or tricks that you've learned with Pendo and what's been working for you.
Yeah, so I think I've already mentioned it, but segmentation is probably my best practice. And I think building it out earlier. So, if you're in a a pickle. You can already have all these built out. So by CSM, by client type, thinking ahead of all the different kinds of segments you may have, and then you can kind of just push guides a lot easier. So building out segments is probably one of my best practices. As far as guides go, I would recommend always linking to a knowledge base if you have one, or an additional resource. I think that really helps drive home. I really like on Pendo how it gives you the option to open up a new web page, so it doesn't take them from their workflow. It allows them to click on that link and then do what they're doing, but then read it later. So I really like that. And then I also think best practices, during every holiday, I like to put up a little message, letting them know happy 4th of July. Here's, just, trying to give them personal touches, letting them know that we care for them. We appreciate what they're doing. I also look at different holidays for our customers. So if they have a patient account management week. So look at what the calendar of what they may be celebrating at their health system, and then kind of getting ahead. It's a nice little personal touch.
Yeah, it increases that attachment that you talked about.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really loved, and I'm going to go back to this example from the old feature, new tricks, but I love how you put this subtitle in your guide that this is a feature announcement. Allows someone to very quickly scan it, understand what this message is about, what they should do with it. Do you do that for most of your light boxes, or did we just get lucky with this one?
No, I think I do that for most of them. And it's great because I love all of the customization options that Pendo has out of the box. So I draw a lot of inspiration, I guess, from the message that y'all send out. Y'all are the experts in it. So I'm like, oh, I like that. I actually screenshot a lot of your the light boxes and guides that y'all send me as a customer. I'm like, oh, that's a great example. So I have a little folder on my desktop of things that I like. So yeah, I try and go ahead and tell them what it is. And then on the button, I try to be a little bit more friendly. So, okay, got it. Instead of saying okay. So I try to give it a little more human touch and, a little more playful language. But yeah, that's pretty standard for most of our stuff.
Well, I love that you mentioned call to action. As a former digital marketer, that is very near and dear to my heart. I think button text makes a huge difference on conversion rates. And for the studio audience, I want to make a quick plug for the Pandemonium event coming up September 16th. I just ran a breakout session with some of our other Pendo customers at WorkHuman. They've got a great session about doing A/B testing within guides to help understand what's going to drive the most interaction, engagement, and conversion. So if you are listening to the sound of my voice and you care about optimizing your guide performance, a great session to check out. Pandemonium tickets on sale now. And we're getting some great chatter in the chat. Guide management. Now that is something that, especially as you're scaling up, putting a lot of one-to-one guides, how do you keep everything straight? What strategies have you found to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I try to name them all in a similar naming convention. So I will do all of our what's new will have what's new in it. So I can, if I'm typing through, I know this is the type of guide. I recently saw that y'all have made additional filtering options on guides, and that's been great because you can say, okay, I only want to see active ones. I only want to see, this type of guide. So I really like the new addition of the filtering. I wouldn't say that I have, the best, most cleanest guides Pendo's probably have ever seen. So, but yeah, I think just having a consistent naming convention is probably my best tip there.
Okay. Do you do any sort of guide review or guide retirement cadence?
Yeah, so guide review, it's very important to have someone look over it before, make sure all my buttons work. So I usually add it to staging. I'll have someone maybe on our product team or our customer support team review it in staging to make sure it does what it thinks I think it's going to do. And then I usually just always set an end time for all of our guides from the start. I just kind of think about it. I usually, I set it for 3 months to begin with. If we still need to communicate with them, then I'll extend it. But I try to retire them because if not, then, you might forget.
And what does it look like when someone wants to request a guide? Do you have a workflow, a form? Do they email you? What is the process to actually get a guide in your product look like?
Mm. Well, I meet with all of our teams very consistently. So, the monthly check-in with the customer support team, I meet with our CSM team bi-weekly. So being able to say, hey, do you all need any guides? Here's what I was thinking for guides. Here's what you can be expecting. So it's kind of ad hoc for the most part. I let them know like, hey, we have a guide planned for this, so maybe we don't do it this day. And then if they have a request for something, they typically will just email me, and then we work together to figure out the time frame for it all. But it's not too formal of a process. It's more like, okay, we're meeting. What needs do you have? Here's my plan.
Awesome. Another question from Paulina in the chat. Thank you, Paulina, and thank you, studio audience. We are still taking all the questions while we have Bobbie here. But Paulina wants to know, how do you measure if in-platform messages are effectively driving users to your knowledge base? Do you have any sort of measurement? Do you have any tracking on that?
That is a great question. That's actually a suggestion I've made to Pendo. I would love to be able to track clicks from the knowledge base, because right now I do actually have to track it through Zendesk. So there's no way to track it through Pendo at the moment. It'd be great if there was. But yeah, I just look inside of my Zendesk analytics and then see what guides have been viewed.
Yeah. Are you using any sort of referral code, so you know if it's coming from Pendo versus like an email versus an external source versus organic search?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we could do the Google, like if it's our website, then you can like do a specific code saying, okay, this is from knowledge base. We don't do that always. It's kind of easy to be able to tell because our guides are pretty much the only thing that are linking from the knowledge base or to the knowledge base. So I can pretty much certainty assume that most times if I add a new guide linking to an article, the views on the article are more than likely from that guide.
We've got another great question from Julie. Julie, appreciate the questions. But I think a lot of people on this call, Pendo's not the full-time job. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into product management or marketing or really anything. How do you balance your time? What percentage of your time is Pendo versus outside of Pendo? And then do you have any tips on balancing?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it too much. I would say I don't spend too much time in Pindo. Like I wouldn't say it's 50%. I would say like 10% of like when I'm working on launches or we're, trying to communicate something new, I build out a Pindo guide or I spend time in Pindo. But I mean, I think over time, we really have been using Pindo for quite some time. So a lot of them are kind of already built and I can make copies of them. So, I think after a while, once you build up that library, it kind of makes things go a little bit quicker. I have my segments built. I have my typical guides, the style I like of them. If it's a brand new feature or a brand new guide and maybe it's, in a different area of the site, then it might take me a few minutes to like figure out like where to tag it and things like that. But for the most part, I would say maybe like 10% of like customer marketing is focused on Pendo.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Another question we get a lot, and these are people who are, maybe just starting their journey with Pendo, trying to build that, that confidence or that, that proficiency in in-app messaging. Do you have any advice for people who are starting their Pendo journey? What sort of campaign should they start with? What's the first small bite that people should take?
Yeah, I think testing out a bunch of different things to see what your audience reacts to well. Try tooltips, try a walkthrough, try just a light box and see what resonates with them better. Did doing a light box reduce questions, or did you get any clicks on your tooltip? Is it too small? Is it hidden in the right place? Just like trying out a bunch of different things to see what your audience responds to. I think over time I've learned kind of what they want. My audience likes, here's the facts, here's the call to action, and light boxes seem to work really well for us. But tooltips are great, if I don't want to be invasive in their workflow. I don't want to stop what they're doing, but I want to be able to give them that education. So I think just trying out what what your audience needs. And then again, the segmentation, building out as many segments as you can think, and then you can kind of mix them up. Does this role mix with, this, amount, this NPS score, they responded to this survey and they did this, being able to like really segment your data, I think is, a good place to start.
Absolutely. Do you do any usage-based segmentation? Is that factored into your campaigns at all?
Not quite as much as role or, user type. So there are some times where, specifically more so, how, if they've been on the site for less than 30 days, or this is their first year, I do more so like time frame than I do usage.
Yeah. And one of the topics that's pretty important to our customer marketing team right now is retention and expansion. Have you done any good in-app campaigns focused on those goals?
Yeah, so retention and expansion, I think, are key. Our buyer and our user are different. So the users are not making necessarily the buying decision of whether or not they're using PatientCo, but I always feel it's very important to give our users a great experience, because eventually, if they're frustrated, it'll make its way up to the top and that will have effect on retention. So I think just like the small like messages and personal touches and, just general like education really has a big impact on our retention as far as like user satisfaction and user retention, their willingness to try and use new things in PatientCo.
I love it. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Bobbie, thank you so much for taking the time. Studio audience, thank you for participating with our wacky choose your own webinar format, and thank you for all the great questions. Really appreciate the time, but especially to you, Bobbie, for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Final plug for Pendemonium. Pendemonium Virtual happening September 16th and 17th. Great breakout sessions, great content. Tickets available now. But until then, signing off.